Hey everyone! So today I want to talk about one of my favorite main DPSs in the game, and that is Diluc. Now let me just say I love Diluc. Ever since that one time you got to play him during the main quest, he has remained one of my favorite characters, and so today I'll go over what I believe to be the best build for him currently in the game and why you should try him out. Hope you enjoy. So first up, let's talk about his weapons. So let's go straight for his overall best weapon, and that is the Wolf's Gravestone. Now this claymore is amazing, as you may already know. It offers a crap ton of attack, which is perfect for Diluc as all of his abilities do scale off his attack, and so more attack means more damage. The other 5-star weapon that is also quite decent is the Unforging, which if you use it and you can keep a shield up on Diluc throughout the fight, then it can actually out DPS the Wolf's Gravestone. However, that does require 100% uptime on the shield, which can be difficult depending on how much you have someone like Zhongli or Diona leveled up. However, if you do have them, then definitely use this instead of the Wolf's Gravestone. Now, we also have the Skyward Pride. However, I wouldn't really recommend this, as firstly we don't really need NG recharge. Diluc's burst only costs 40 NG, it's not that hard to get. Furthermore, the passive just doesn't perform nearly as well as the other 5-star weapons. But yeah, that's it for the 5-star weapons. Let's now move on to the 4 stars. As far as the 4 stars go, there are 2 main weapons you want, and that is the Serpent Spine and the Prototype Archaic. Firstly, the Serpent Spine is really good. It offers crit rate, which with Diluc already having a decent amount of crit rate due to his ascensions, this can really bring you up to a point where you only have to worry about crit damage for his artifacts. But yeah, its passive is also pretty nice, it can give you a nice bonus to damage. The only thing you have to be wary of is that you will also take increased damage, which can make you underestimate how hard the enemy will hit you and you may die. Finally, we have the Prototype Archaic, probably the most free-to-play friendly weapon on this list and a very decent alternative to other weapons, good amount of attack with a decent passive that can help clear large groups of enemies. Next up we have artifacts. Now there's only one set that you should be running, and that is the Crimson Witch of Flame set. This set offers it all, pyro damage and a huge burst to your reactions. No other set comes even close to the set in terms of damage. If you are still in the early to mid game though, it can be okay to run like a Berserkers or a Glad set. However, the second you can start farming the set, then definitely do so, as your damage will skyrocket. Let's go into detail a bit more about these artifacts. So firstly we have the Sands. Now the Sands, most of the time you want to be running an attack percentage Sands, as that will provide you with the best damage. However, if you are running, for example, the Wolf's Gravestone, and you already have a huge amount of attack, then due to the diminishing returns of attack, in that the more you stack it, the less and less effective it becomes, then it is actually better for you to run Elemental Mastery Sands, which will make your reactions, like Vaporize, hit much harder. Now again, only run this if you have a good amount of attack. I sadly, personally don't have a good Elemental Mastery Sands, so I don't really run this, but if I did, I definitely would. Now moving on to the Goblet, you want a Pyro Damage Goblet, pretty obvious. Then for the Circlet, you probably want to run a Crit Damage Circlet, as you already get a good amount of crit rate from your Ascension, so I don't usually like running a crit rate Circlet. Now moving on to what substats you should be focusing on. So like many other DPSs, you want to first focus on crit damage, then crit rate, moving on to attack percentage, and finally Elemental Mastery. Moving on, let's quickly touch on some of his talents and constellations. Talents wise, they are all really good. However, you want to focus on his skill first, as it is his bread and butter and the skill you'll be using to deal a majority of his damage. Next, you should level up his burst, as it doesn't cost that much energy, only 40, and so you'll be using it quite frequently, and then level up his normal attacks. Next, his constellations are all really amazing and improve his damage by quite a bit. I was quite lucky, I managed to get him to C1, which is very awesome, but to get him to C6 it's going to be extremely hard, as he is a 5-star character, and so unless you're a huge whale you probably aren't going to get him there, and so we can only hope that he appears in a featured banner soon. Next, let's talk about the teams that he best fits into. But before that, let's quickly talk about his best reaction. Now his best reaction is Vaporize, which does 1.5 times the damage, and even though Melt does 2 times the damage, whenever we trigger Melt, the cryo status gets removed, and so you can only trigger it once, whereas with Vaporize and with the wet status, it doesn't get removed after a reaction, and so with one wet status you can trigger Vaporize multiple times. And so, saying that, for his best team, we're gonna need someone who can apply it. The best person for that is Shinshu, mainly due to his burst, which can reliably apply the wet status, which will allow Diluc to trigger Vaporize. Next up, we want a support who can also heal us, and so we have a few options, but the best is Bennett, as he will also allow us to get the Pyro Resonance bonus, which will help out Diluc's attack. And finally, I like to run someone who can shield my Diluc from damage, and so I usually run Zhongli, as he has the best shield in the game, as well as he can do some great burst damage even as a support character. Another person you could run here is Diona, as she has a very nice shield as well as healing. However, you just have to be careful about not freezing the enemy. And so, all in all, Diluc is a very strong character who can now put huge amounts of damage through his reactions, and has been one of my favorite characters for a while now. And even though that there is characters like Hu Tao who can now put crazy amounts of damage, I still find myself coming back to Diluc. And so, I hope you enjoyed this guide, and I'll see you next time.